When it comes to your retirement, do you want to have the same old plan everyone else has? Of course not. You're unique and have your own goals and dreams. Don't be treated just like a number. This is your retirement. So it's time to think differently. And you're in luck because you've found the Retire Your Way podcast with ILG Financial. At ILG Financial, you won't find generic, run-of-the-mill plans containing the same old cookie-cutter solutions. Dave, Chase, and the ILG Financial team focus on building one retirement at a time using their Think Differently philosophy. And that means your own comprehensive plan with customized solutions built to achieve just one goal, yours. So put on your Think Differently hats and get ready to take back control of your retirement today and for all the tomorrows to come. ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast was created just for you, and it's starting right now.
When it comes to retirement, do you want to have the same old plan everybody else has? Of course you don't. You're unique. You have your own goals and dreams. Don't be treated just like a number. This is your retirement, so it's time to think differently. And you're in luck because you found the Retire Your Way podcast with ILG Financial. At ILG Financial, you will find generic run-of-the-mill plans containing the same old cookie-cutter solutions. Dave Lopez, Chase Lopez, and the ILG Financial team focus on building one retirement at a time using their Think Differently philosophy. And that means your own comprehensive plan with customized solutions built to achieve just one goal, yours. So put on your Think Differently hat and get ready to take back control of your retirement today and for all the tomorrows to come. ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast was created just for you, and it's starting right now. I'm Ron Stutz, and today people are providing more aid to adult children and having children later in life. The combination can make it hard to save for retirement. Stretching parenting into your 50s and 60s or even beyond that sometimes doesn't just consume energy. It can strain finances and delay retirement plans. We're joined today by Chase Lopez to talk about this trend and how to navigate it when it comes to saving for your retirement. Chase, how are you?
Doing great. Glad to be here today. Right before we hopped on, we were talking. This will be a neat topic only because a lot of times we do some more technical things. But this one's going to talk a little bit. We'll have less numbers, less, foreign concepts, and really just talking about, as you mentioned, this, I think issue is too strong of a word, but just this new variable that folks have to take into account with their retirement that maybe, previous generations didn't have to.
This life situation, basically, is a good way, I guess, to describe it. But It is true that a lot of people are, having kids later on in life and find themselves in a situation where they can't really concentrate on preparing for their own retirement, but they still have to support in one way or another their own kids. And basically we see it every day. Talk about the trends with parents these days, Chase, if you would, and kind of lay the groundwork for what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it is something that it is a trend, to use your term, right? That we've certainly seen more of in, this generation than we have in previous generations. I was reading that in 2023, 18% of adults 25 through 34 years old were living in their parents' home, right? So this pattern just makes, parenting longer and later into, the parent's life. And it's part of this kind of, overall demographic shift. And, among parents who provide support, nearly half have reported that their role lasted longer than they expected, leaving them, uncertain about whether they're helping their kids, launch successfully or providing a crutch. So it's really kind of a double-edged sword in that sense, right? You want to make sure that you're helping your kids, but you also want to make sure that, you're setting them up for, success moving forward. I think that's the constant push and pull with parents.
Yeah, life throws you curves. There's no question about that. And
Sure.
this is one of the curbs that gets thrown at a lot of people. Having children later on in life means that causes increased financial demands, and that will stretch a lot of years and decades even.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? In 2023, for the first time on record, more babies were born to women over 40 than to teenagers. Now, that's overall for society. I may argue that it's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
We have parents that are in a more financially stable situation that are having children, right? That bodes well for the children writ large. But when it comes to retirement planning, right, and financial planning, if you're going to have to, be a more involved parent, right, later on into your life, right,
and
maybe
you have
your
to
50s
stay young
or your
for
60s.
a while, in order
That's
to do
right.
that.
Yeah, exactly. If you figured out the trick to do that, let me know.
Yeah, really.
I bet my clients would love that. But to your point, we see it every day, right? We've mentioned it previously here on the podcast. We kind of work very exclusively with folks either in or near retirement, and every day we hear a new story about, they're helping either their kids or their grandkids, right, with X, Y, and Z, and how that kind of fits into their overall plan.
Well, give us an example of somebody that you have worked with and that you know all that it entails on, as far as being an older parent is concerned. Tell us what's happening in a specific situation and kind of break it down for us.
Yeah, so brought one example for us today. Kind of illustrates everything that we've kind of talked about up until this point. So in this example, there's a woman. She's on a secure path to retirement from her civilian department of the Army. So she worked for the civilian department of the Army. Mm-hmm. She was 48 years old, and she gave birth to triplets at 48.
Wow.
Yes. Her mortgage was nearly paid off, so that's good. Right? And she was building a pension that was going to be worth about 60% of her salary. And she was steadily funding her TSP, her thrift savings plan, which a lot of our listeners are probably aware of for federal government, along with some other investments as well. So she retired at 56 because, instead of her job was going to relocate to Alabama from Virginia. So she decided to retire so that she didn't have to move her and her children down to Alabama. Mm-hmm. So she counted on her pension and assumed she could pick up part-time work. So she has the pension coming in, and she was going to work part-time to kind of balance all of that stuff out. But balancing the job with 3 young children, right, triplets, that is certainly a big obstacle, right?
She gave birth at 48 to triplets. That's incredible.
I know it. But, balancing the job with the 3 young children proved very difficult. And then some of the children started to develop some medical problems. So between 2002 and 2024, her out-of-pocket medical expenses exceeded $392,000. So I think oftentimes when folks think about taking care of their either adult children or older children, they often think about things like, hey, buying them a car or, having to buy extra food for the house, things of that nature.
Paying for their phone service. And
that's right. Paying for the phone service. That's a very popular one, right? Yeah. But things like this, like out-of-pocket medical expenses and things of that nature, right? Those are kind of the big ticket items that sometimes folks don't really think about, right? That they may have to help their children with. So as the debt mounted, she began tapping the equity in her house. So today, now at 71, right? Her savings are running low. Her pension is her only lifeline to kind of supplement the part-time jobs that she's doing, and she still supports her 22-year-old triplets, 2 of whom are in college.
Wow, that is kind of an unusual situation. I mean, used to, people said, people should not give birth, when they're over 40 years old and everything. And this is really an extreme case where this woman is 48, and with medical advancements these days, I mean, that situation is not like it used to be. But everybody has unique family situations, but for people who are either supporting family members longer than they thought they ever would or have children later in life, what are some things that they can do or at least keep in mind that they might be able to do?
Yeah, so really and truly, right, like a lot of things we talk about, right, it's, hey, you want to kind of prepare yourself, right? So what we call is prepare your kind of roadmap, right? So we talk about that a lot with retirement planning, obviously, right? But also we want to talk about it with respect to your family situation and how that ties in financially, right? So you don't want to assume that once your kids are grown, everything will kind of sort itself out, right? Yeah. Without a plan, parenting grown kids can get messy and unpredictable. We see it every day. And it can collide with pressures like aging parents and your own health challenges, right? As you age, you have your own health challenges as well.
Yeah, and you may be in a situation where you're part of the sandwich generation. Not only are you helping to support your kids, but you're also taking care of your parents, which makes it really tough.
That's exactly right. So in order to kind of alleviate some of this, right, we always recommend to talk about family finances, right? So a lot of parents kind of feel a stigma about, supporting their children and avoid the topic because money is kind of taboo. But without clear expectations kind of on both sides, right, both from the parent side and also from the children's side, support can be a little bit confusing and also kind of a source of conflict. One thing we recommend to a lot of clients is that if you want to, what we do here at our office is we will meet with our clients and their children, right? It kind of helps sometimes if there's a uninvested third party that kind of talks through these different, financial decisions, different things regarding the family's finances. So if you do have an advisor, right, I would strongly, suggest, hey, figuring out a way to get all three parties in the room so that there can be kind of for lack of a better term, kind of like a mediator, right?
As is the case in so many situations, communication is the key, and you need to actually, voice your expectations, right?
That's exactly right. You got to be upfront, right? Specifically about, what you need in return. You may be glad to step in for your kids a bit, right? But if they don't reciprocate that or whatever the case may be, that may lead to some resentment, right? So want to be very crystal clear as to, what the expectations are.
Yeah. Hopefully everybody will show appreciation and pitch into this situation. And you should let them go ahead and chip in with the situation and take part of the responsibility.
Oh, and I think this is a big one, Ron. I see this one, specifically where sometimes the parent can be a little bit apprehensive to ask the kid to chip in with whatever, right? And it honestly doesn't really matter, right? But I think, two things that kind of accomplishes. Number one, letting them chip in. I think that, at least in my experience, right, it kind of lights the fire, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
If your kid says, hey, look, I'm already helping to pay at home, right? They may think, well, if I pay a little bit extra, I can live on my own. So it kind of starts to set the stage for what the cost would be to, move out of the house if that's the specific situation you're talking about. Also, right, you, meaning the parent, right, you have a nest egg to protect as well, right?
Yeah.
You want to be able to retire one day. And I have this conversation with a lot of clients as well, which is you're doing your children no favors by drawing down your nest egg before you need it, because ultimately on the back end, right, once you become old and need help at that point, well, now the money's not going to be there, and now you're going to have to lean on your kids, the same kids that you were helping before, to, let's say long-term care or something like that, right? So ultimately, what's the old phrase? You're cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah, exactly, and you're enabling them at the same time,
Right, and it could prove detrimental to your specific financial situation 15, 20, 30 years down the line.
Yeah, and you mentioned that this particular woman, this example that you're using, I mean, it sounds like she's still in pretty good health herself and still able to work, but a lot of people, don't really have the option to work forever. I mean, things just don't work out that way.
That's exactly right. And that's kind of where I was going with the last one, right? With talking about, letting them pitch in and kind of protecting your nest egg.
Yeah.
I have heard people tell me, hey, look, well, I'm going to help them now, and then, I'll just work forever, right? To kind of use that phrase.
I'm never going to retire.
That's right. I'm never going to retire. Yeah, that's the exact phrase they use, right? And ultimately, right, that may not be a option, right? Yeah. Depending on your health, depending on what you do for work, right? If you, if you're a carpenter or something like that requires, manual labor, it may not be realistic to think that, you're going to work forever. So by protecting that nest egg and protecting that, retirement for you in the future, not only are you protecting yourself, but you're also protecting, I would argue, you're protecting your children as well from having to potentially take care of you once you get into your later years.
Now, as we talked about before, communication is the real key, and I think it's important for these folks to be transparent about their own retirement strategy, to let your kids know what you're trying to do and what you're going to need in order to get there.
That's exactly right. And, if this goes back to not being scared to have these conversations, right? Ultimately, if we're talking about adult children, right, they are adults, right? So they can handle these types of conversations. oftentimes, if going back to what we were talking about before, if you can sit down, and particularly if you can sit down with them and your financial advisor and just walk through, hey, this is the plan. This is our retirement strategy. This is what we'll need to have in order to kind of execute that strategy. Well, now the child knows all of the moving parts, right? Now they can internally, right, kind of internalize and say, okay, well, maybe, I need to start figuring my stuff out, right?
Yeah.
So that, this doesn't come back to bite us, 20 to 25 years from now. So that kind of long-term strategy, long-term vision, right, is not only helpful for you, but extremely helpful to kind of relate to the kids as well. So everyone's on the same page.
And you're setting a good example for them, and they can develop their own trends and habits as far as setting aside for their own retirement later on down the road. And when you fly on a plane, the flight attendant always stands up and tells you all these things that you need to do as far as your seatbelt is concerned and everything else. But if there's some kind of a situation in the cabin where you need to pull down that oxygen mask, they always say, put your own on first.
That's right.
Before you start helping other people. And I guess in the same way here, the folks at ILG Financial will remind you that you need to protect your own retirement assets, look after yourself first, and then you're in a position where you can help everybody else.
Boy, that is probably the best analogy I've ever heard, Ron, and I'm definitely going to steal it. So and I'm not going to give you credit. No, I'm just kidding.
Feel free, but man. No. That's just absolutely fine. I've never had anybody say anything to me like that, so
That's funny. But no, I think you hit the nail on the head with that analogy, right? Which is you're not doing your kids any favors by borrowing from your retirement to help them now, right? Because ultimately, that if you destroy your own, financial situation to help your child, then who's going to have to be the one to help you down the line with the ramifications of doing that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's going to have to end up being them. Before going too deep with direct financial assistance, I would say do a thorough analysis of your own financial well-being to determine what your limits may be. You want to balance generosity, responsibility, and prudence. And that's really where I think working with a financial professional, working with an advisor like us, right, can really help you start to quantify these things and figure out, what the best path is moving forward.
And I think it's really important to point out that your financial advisor can help with all of that, help you with analysis, tell you where you are, explain to you what your assets are, what your opportunities are for making your situation better. All of that can help when there's any kind of a new life circumstance, and those things always pop up. Life happens. I think John Lennon once said, life is what happens when you're making other plans.
You like I love it. I love it.
You can steal that one too, because that's
there we go.
John Lennon.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah. It's really an interesting conversation today, all about people who have children later in life, and that can lead to some financial problems down the road for them. And I know that Chase and Dave and all the folks at ILG Financial can help you through that situation. Hey, Chase, it's been a lot of fun talking about this today.
Ron, I really appreciate it. Always look forward to our discussions, and we'll talk to you soon.
You're one step closer to learning what a customized retirement strategy can do for you. ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast provides for lots of things, certainly a lot of food for thought. Income, legacy, growth, it's all right here at ILG Financial, and it's about helping you plan for retirement your way so you can achieve your own financial goals. Call ILG Financial at 540-720-5656. That's 540-720-5656. Or, of course, you can go online to ilgfinancial.com to learn more. This has been the ILG Retire Your Way podcast. I'm Ron Stutz with Chase Lopez. Thanks for listening. The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for any individual or entity. All information contained herein is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of Dave Lopez and do not necessarily represent the views of the Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory services offered through AlphaStar Capital Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. AlphaStar and ILG Financial, LLC are independent entities. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability.
Hey, Chase Lopez here. Thanks for listening to Retire Your Way with ILG Financial, our podcast. Make sure you head to our YouTube channel as well to check out our video series, Retire Your Way with ILG Financial. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like our videos there so you can be alerted for any future videos. Talk to you soon.